And so, warm welcome, everybody, to today's session. We're going to talk about happiness. So, a great topic. Don't know wherever you are, it's a bit gloomy and dark here. So that's all positive. If you haven't seen us here before, my name is Carin Söderberg, and I'm joined by Grant, and we are wellbeing coaches here at Wellbeing People. So we're going to dive straight in and talk about our happiness and especially how we can get more happiness into our lives ourselves. What can we do? And I love that image if you picked up on it on the holding slide just as you were joining in, that, with the little character asking, where you'd found that jar of happiness, and he says, "Oh, I made it myself." So that's all we're going to talk about today, is how we can create some of that happiness. But before we dive into the topic, yeah, should we ask us those questions on the feedback poll, Grant? What do you
Yeah.
feedback?
Um, well, in terms of the feedback poll, what do we see? We notice, of course, let me just open it again so I can see it. So the questions around, how are you currently feeling about your health, your happiness, and your well-being habits? Leading the way is kind of mixed. So some successes, some failures, with
Yeah.
kind of 60, 70% of that. And the second question, an incredibly reflective question, lovely question, kind of a very introspective question. How would you currently rate your overall happiness out of 10? And again, common answers being, six and sevens and things like that. And some answers on the lower spectrum as well. And it's important as well, to acknowledge those low numbers, isn't it? So if you are feeling really unhappy and really down, it's important that that's a good starting point, isn't it, to perhaps reach out for a little bit of support if you need it, and if you want.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
And a good
lovely
reminder there
reflections.
as well about, how happy are you feeling at the moment? Varies day by day, doesn't it? So we all have our ups and downs, right? Can't be happy all the time.
Yeah, do we all agree? Give me a high five if you agree. Let's check everyone's there. I mean, I always like to check in. There we go. So we got a bit of a high. When I say high five, Karen was like smiling because whenever I'm doing a webinar or I'll ask for interaction, I'll just say, okay, give me a virtual high five. So if you want to, just raise your hand as a little virtual high five. Let me know that you're there, and let me know that kind of you can hear us and see us okay. But um,
Fabulous.
but yeah,
A good reminder as well, in terms of that, is that of course how this session is going to work is that Grant and I will do all the talking, and hopefully you can all hear and see us all right. But please do join the chat function to communicate with us about anything. We'll pop a few questions to you as we go along to get you to reflect on the topics we're discussing. But if you've got any other questions or comments, just post them in the chat function, and we'll definitely pick up on that. So, before we hop into it, Grant, have you got something else to add before we get started?
well, no, I mean, it was interesting what you mentioned about, you can't be happy all the time, and I think that's one of the big myths when it comes to happiness. So, what do you guys think? You're here attending this. Do you think that it's a big myth that we have to be happy all the time? And it's incorrect, because life is difficult, right? Life is a challenge. I think we can all agree that. Give me a high five. Do you think life is difficult? Would perhaps another way to reframe this is say, would anyone here that's attending like a little bit more difficulty in their life? Do you want a little bit more difficulty in your life? Is difficult, right? Not always, but a lot of the time life is difficult. So it's completely understandable and completely natural that our feelings of emotions like joy and pleasure and happiness, those sorts of things, it's it's quite normal to have a varied myriad and different ever-changing flow of emotions. Would we all agree? Because some days,
Yeah.
we're on top of the world, and you wake up in the morning, you put your socks up, and you're like, right, I'm bring it on. I'm all over this. Um, and other days it's like, oh my goodness, someone kicked me in the leg. What is going on? This is that I can't find any motivation here. I'm just lethargic. I'm tired. So it's quite natural and quite normal to recognize that those positive
Yeah.
feelings come and go,
And
come
I
and go.
would probably say as well that you need that, right? To know when you're happy. If you were just ecstatic all the time, maybe, that would wear off and you wouldn't you wouldn't recognize and realize, the happiness. So I think some of those things that we want to get into today, we all want to be happy, of course, and we don't want to have too many days of feeling sad, but we also perhaps recognize that we need to feel all the different emotions. So we'll get into that a little bit deeper. But just to kick us off to get started, because I know this is Grant's absolute favorite topic to talk about. So we're going to try and keep to the topic and get the message out to you guys, and stay to time as well. So Grant, what is it about, this topic of happiness that you find so fascinating and interesting?
Well, look, well, it's interesting what you say there about want, we all want happiness. And that's how, it was triggered in me like a number of years ago. Crikey, when I reflect now, my daughter was like 5 years old. I think it was like 2013 or something like that. And I went to her, the story goes, right, and Karen's heard this 1,000 times, I'm sure, but just for everybody else here, the story goes that I picked Grace up from school. She was 5 years old, and we were walking back, and it was a lovely summer's day. And she's, as I say, she's a young girl, and she's 5 years old, and she's holding my hand, and we're walking back from school, and she's laughing, she's giggling, and she's smiling, and she looks up at me, and she says, "Daddy, I feel very happy today." And I looked down at Grace, feeling like, I'm winning the best parent award in the world at that moment. And I looked down at Grace and I smiled and I said, "That's really lovely, Grace. Why do you feel happy today?" And she looked up at me, and I'll never forget her face. She kind of looked up at me like I'd asked her the most odd question ever. And she looked up at me and she kind of squinted and then shrugged her shoulders and she said, "Well, because I want to. Because I want to be happy." What sort of question is, why are you happy? It's because I want to be. And I understand that Grace's perspectives on happiness are different to mine and to yours and everything like that.
Yeah,
But it
but
just,
it's such a lovely reminder, and it's that child's perspective, of course, of simplifying things, and perhaps before all the stresses and the worries of life has popped up as well. But it's a really lovely story, and it's the absolute, key message of today, that we want to remind ourselves that even though, some of us are naturally just predisposed to be a lot more optimistic and happier than some others who might be more prone to negativity and a bit gloomy. And there's a lot of sort of genetics involved in that outlook. But the basis is that, if we want to be happy, we have to almost practice it and do happy in our daily lives. It doesn't tend to come from other people or from outside sources. We know that it doesn't come from, materialistic things. You can have everything in the world and still be, really unhappy. So it's almost a bit like training ourselves to see the happiness and choosing to be a bit more optimistic. So we want to look at some of those parts as well. But there's a lot of myths around happiness as well that you mentioned right at the start, Grant. So we mentioned
yeah.
about, you know, experiencing all the different types of emotions, and we know that we need to have all of those different feelings to recognize when we're happy and to realize when we're sad, and kind of how we engage in all of that. But what else? What other myths do we
Well,
have around
one of the things that
happiness?
jumps to mind is that idea, isn't it, that if you experience a positive event or a situation where something really, really great happens, that those feelings associated with that moment are going to last a long time. But do they?
Yeah.
And then conversely, if an adversity occurs, a stress occurs, a trauma, bereavement, a huge change, and all those negative emotions that are attached to that situation, that moment, we often will expect that they will last a long time, but of course, do they? So another myth might be that, when we do experience really positive, great, happy things, that we expect that our feelings are going to just last for a long time, but life isn't like that. As we said, life is difficult. And another thing is that the expectation that if you're not happy, you're defective.
Mm,
That
yeah.
you must be kind of broken somehow if you're not happy. So, I mean, it's right. You're exactly right what you're saying. I think when it comes to experiencing happiness, it depends what it really means to you, right? So I guess my question would be to you and to everyone I talk to about this is what does happiness mean to you? So,
Hmm.
what if you're here attending today? If you're watching this on a recording, take the moment now just to pause and just share with me and everybody else in that chat function. What does happiness mean to you? What intuitively jumps into your brain and it makes you smile when you think about with me in the chat function? What does it mean to you, Karin?
Oh wow. Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah, good luck.
yeah, thanks, Ron. It's a big question, isn't it? And I love that question because we can ask, what makes you happy? So, would get answers like friends and family and travel and, having a nice time and do fun things and be out with your friends. Those are things that make you happy. But, what does happiness mean overall? And I just saw that in the comment now, which was that I was going to lean to as well. Contentment, which
Yeah.
sounds a little bit
Yeah.
dull and middle of the road, doesn't it? But I think, for me, being able to be present in the moment, be grateful, appreciate everything that I have and feel content with that and not, constantly, compare myself to others, wanting different things, just kind of being appreciative and of the things that you have
Yeah.
and that gratitude. I think that's kind of where I'm leaning towards with what happiness
Yeah.
means to
There's
me.
loads. There's loads of great stuff popping in.
Yeah.
I
So
love the
we're getting
one.
both the sort of those happy moments, like what
Yeah.
makes you happy, you know, having
Yeah.
fun and spending time with friends and family, being out in nature, enjoying. Those are all things that, that give us that instant happiness. But like you were saying before, how long does it last? Does
Yeah.
all the little happy things we do add to our overall happiness? I suppose it would do, if we're every day getting little doses of things that make us happy. Hopefully
Yeah.
it will last and we have the impression of a happy life, I suppose.
Yeah. And when we think of happiness, often these words that I'm noticing, contentment, you
Yeah.
mentioned appreciation, love, flourishing. Someone said glowing, and you start to think, wow, it's
Yeah.
acceptance. Someone's kind of
I just saw that one as
nudging
well, feeling accepted and also, that self-acceptance, right, is really key. And I think it also links back to kind of accepting, who you are and that
Yeah.
comparison to others because you might be happy not being ecstatic all the time, right? You might be
Well,
content by not needing to laugh constantly and be out having a great time and travel and be with
yeah.
friends and and having that self-acceptance and perhaps not comparing ourselves to others too much.
Well, after it was interesting because after I had that moment of almost kind of revelation with Grace, because then I just it triggered loads of interest and I started reading and learning a lot more about it. I decided it would be a useful idea, and feel free to do this, by the way, everybody. I did a kind of a scratch poll survey, and I just went to and asked. I just challenged myself to ask 100 people um, uh, uh, um, uh, what does happiness mean? So and that was my mission. I set myself that target, and it's really interesting because you are so just random people. I'll say random people. It was at the time I was working within a health club, so it was the audience was those people within the health club that I'd asked. That was a demographic, but I got some really fascinating answers. And one of the ones which you kind of alluded to, kind of there, was I went up to ask this one person, and it was a gentleman that was sat on his own in the corner of the club. And I said, "Hi, my name's Grant. I'm just doing this scratch poll survey. If you're interested, I'm just trying to collect a few answers, and I'm intrigued about happiness. And my question is, what does happiness mean to you?" And this person turned around and went to me, "Well, I'm not a happy person."
Oh, there you go.
And I was like, okay.
Sorry.
And because I guess that some people are happy being unhappy. It's kind of like Eeyore from kind of Winnie the Pooh, right? He's always a little bit,
Hmm.
it's always a little bit down. But we have to accept that it's very subjective. It's very unique to each and every one of us. Um,
Absolutely, yeah.
but it's interesting because people are reflecting here around purpose, around some of
Yeah,
those words that we use:
picked
love,
up on
pleasure,
that.
satisfaction, contentment, those sorts of things.
Yeah,
Um,
those overarching sort of
but
big
let's
parts of
kind
our
of
life.
extend that question and ask people then, what types of things make you happy? Perhaps it's something that you do, or
Yeah, I think
something
we've got quite
material.
a few of those mixed in there. So feel free to post,
Yeah,
what happiness means and also the things that make you happy.
yeah. What instantly jumps into your brain? What makes you happy? Share with me in the chat function. Yeah, eating food.
Yeah.
My belly's happy.
Oh, I love that. Being a solution provider. Yeah,
Yeah,
serving other people. That's lovely as well, and something that we'll come on to, the happiness it gives us of giving back to others. Exercising makes me happy. Fabulous. We'll come on to all of that when we're doing happy.
fabulous. And what we notice is that there's a wonderful kind of founding father of happiness, arguably positive psychology as well, Martin Seligman. He identified there are certain action because going back to your message that you were kind of saying earlier on was that if you want to feel happy, you have to do happy, right? Yeah, you can't just think yourself happy. Would we all agree? Give me a high five. It's incredibly difficult just to think yourself happy, right?
Mhm.
So it's dependent. So what you do carries with it a huge impact on how you feel. So the types of actions that we do, Martin Seligman kind of categorized these, and he said that we can do types of actions that give us a quick hit. It's almost like having a double espresso of happiness and joy and pleasure. And so these are the things that people have identified here, being out in sunshine, being with animals,
Yeah.
watching a film, listening to music, the sunshine, being by the sea, these sorts of things that give you a quick fix. Buying something, spending some money. No,
Yeah.
you know, in the
Don't
short
mind a
term,
bit of
it's
that.
great. In the short term, it's great, but there might be further problems down the line if you're just spending loads of money. So it's these things that we do that give us a quick fix of happiness, but it's quite fleeting. It's quite short-lived,
Mm.
and we call those things immediate gratification, things that you do that give you an instant hit. And
Yeah.
then he categorized other things around achieving gratification. So these are actions that give you a sense of pride or a sense of achievement. So it might
Mm.
be um, finishing reading a book, it might be finishing a course, it might be achieving a certain goal. So it revolves around things that give you a sense of pride and a sense of achievement. And
Yeah.
then
Like some
finally,
of the comments there around purpose in life, right?
and that's the last one, yeah. And the last one is what kind of things around enduring happiness, things so this revolves around contribution and giving and kindness and having a sense of purpose
Mm.
that
That meaning to our life.
exactly. And I think the point of it was to notice that it's not just about focusing just on one of those immediate achieving or enduring. It's about
Mm.
noticing that it's almost like a kind of a jigsaw puzzle that kind of comes to
Yeah.
life when you've
And
got bits of everything.
it's great that you've put all of these things here in the chat, right? And we've had both those sort of overarching things like having a purpose, feeling contentment, that connection, and also those instant things that give us a little bust, like exercise, laughing, spending time with your friends and family and things. So at this moment, as you've listed those things and thought about them yourself, also take a moment to just reflect on, how much time you create in your calendar to actually exercise these things, because you know they make you feel good and they make you happy, but quite often, I'm sure I'm not alone here, the weeks are rushing by and we're quite busy doing things all the time, and the things that really matter to our happiness might not always be our priority. So just a little reminder there to schedule in all of those fun things as well. But I think on the topic of this that you've just mentioned, Grant, I think it's really crucial to be aware of in terms of, what makes you happy. Is it that instant gratification and the enduring happiness and the finding that purpose and meaning in your life? It's all about practicing those things and figuring
Yeah.
out, what that is to you. So I'd like to ask you, everybody, again, pop in the chat function, have a little think about, what your signature strengths are. What are the things that you're good about, you're good at doing? We all have those strengths, and I love that the comment that was put in there, about serving others, and solving problems and stuff, which is brilliant, right? So there's that kind of selfish doing good for other people, which we know is, it benefits both us and the people that we are doing all those kind deeds for. So let me know in the chat function, what are your signature strengths? What is it that you're good at? And maybe I'll ask you, Grant, whilst everybody has to think about that. What are your signature strengths?
Well, other than being an excellent kind of dancer,
I
Karin,
thought you were going to say webinar.
um, one of my signature strengths, I feel like I'm caring. I feel like I make the most of the moment as most I can. We were talking about this like the other day, weren't we? We were like about, I feel like I'm missing out if I'm not kind of like living in the moment as best I can.
Yeah.
But what are my signature strengths? You know, but sometimes I reflect, I go, oh God, I care a lot. I feel like, one of my signature strengths is wanting to help and wanting to support other people to achieve what they want to achieve.
Hmm.
Sometimes I realize I can spread myself a bit thin with that as well, because you end up taking on a little bit too much. But
Wow.
but yeah, so it's just a fascinating way to play to our strengths, and that's what positive psychology was. It was about what are some of the actions that you can do to increase happiness, those positive emotions and feelings, and also um, what are your strengths? And when was
Yeah.
the last time you played to your strengths? When was the last time you used your strengths?
And also, because it can be difficult sometimes when you just post with that question. So if you're sat there now thinking, "Oh, I'm not quite sure," ask somebody else. Ask your family members and your colleagues to let you know. And it's really lovely sometimes to have other people tell you what it is that's special about you and what it is that you do really well. So if you're struggling to think of what that is yourself, then ask other people around you. So
But that,
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, sorry. Well, it brings about that idea that we're programmed to notice the bad things, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we go through our days noticing all the things that are bad or negative. And I mean, it's a useful, of course, we've evolved with this because we search out patterns and we want to stay alive and all that jazz. But therefore, it takes quite a lot of intentional focus to actually notice some of the great things. And if I said to you all now, when was the last time someone said something amazing about you? Perhaps you're going, oh, crikey, why did he ask me that question? Oh, no. And it's because often, it's like our brain can be like kind of Velcro to those negative emotions and
Mm,
Teflon to those positive emotions, those positive experiences. And we don't notice them. They just flow through us like water through a sieve, and we just don't take time to notice those wonderful experiences.
absolutely. And as you say, our brains are sort of wired in that way towards negativity. So it's something that we have to practice to get better
Yeah,
at, noticing the good things and not lingering or focusing too much on the negative side. It's
yeah,
sort of, the kind of acceptance of your surroundings and your reality, and kind of
yeah.
choosing the happy for yourself. Now, I want to get into the details because the webinar is called Unlocking Your Happiness Hormones, right? So we're definitely going to look at, how the chemistry really of happiness and how we can tap into that. But do you think, Grant, just before we leave, though, now we've discussed a bit about, what makes you happy, what does happiness mean, where are you at on your happiness, on your scoreboard at the moment? But should we also just spend a couple of minutes just highlighting, what might be the barriers to our happiness? What are some of the causes of unhappiness that you might
Yeah.
experience yourself? So let us know in the chat function, what gets in the way of you being happy. And there's lots, isn't it, in the way that we live our
Yeah,
lives in this, in our modern world, as
yeah,
we say. Because again, with our ancient brains, as you just pointed out, we geared towards negativity. We have that survival instinct that, our brains are really there only just to kind of keep us alive and protect us. So we're always a little bit on alert. So we live in really stressful times. We're bombarded with information. There's loads of things coming at us. We have busy works and busy home lives. We have really high expectations on ourselves. And it's all part of how our brain is wired to keep us going, right? And to keep us alive. So to have a think a little bit about, some of those things that might get in the way. And I think many of you are going to say stress, right? Lack of time,
Yeah.
all the chores that you have to do. Yeah, financial worries, your workload. Yeah. Feeling that you take on too much. So it's common themes, isn't it? So many of you are saying the same thing. So it's comforting to know that we all deal with those things, but it's,
There are lots of causes, common causes of unhappiness when we
yeah.
start, when we start to reflect around, um, feeling out of shape and unhealthy. Procrastination can be a common cause of unhappiness.
Mhm.
All work and no play. Give me a high five. Does that something that resonate with you? Sometimes that's a cause of unhappiness for some of them. Uh,
Mhm.
um, Perhaps sometimes we compare ourselves to others, don't we? We start to desire what we don't have,
Yeah,
uh, uh,
absolutely. And
and
I think that's
forget to
very
notice.
common in our part of the world where we're kind of quite driven by materialistic things, right?
Yeah,
And wanting more things and indeed, comparing yourselves to others in many different ways of the things that we feel perhaps when I have this and that, or when I look a certain way, when I've achieved a certain goal, I'll find that happiness. And then we might spend our time chasing that instead of, noticing the things that we have
yeah.
and trying to. For me, I think that happiness is very much about trying to be present in the moment and not spending
Well,
too much time in the future or in the past.
that's it. That's the key, isn't it? I mean, if you've got a busy, give me a high five. Have you got a busy brain? Have you got a busy mind? Would you say
Give
you've
me a
got a
high
busy
five.
mind? It's just like a snow globe, like just buzzing around sometimes, and
Yeah,
perhaps
yeah, yeah, yeah.
perhaps that's where we just feel like we're living in our head a lot of the time, worrying about what may go right or wrong.
And that's
Or,
all about the being
you know,
busy, right? And we know, of course, that we are all busy and we have so much to do, but we need to kind of try and get out of that mindset a little bit because we're just never going to catch up, are we? And it's okay to allow yourself to step away sometimes and to take a break because the chores and the to-do list are always going to be there, right? So
yeah,
it's about prioritizing the important things, but also to prioritize the things that perhaps aren't on your to-do list, which are all the things that you mentioned that everybody put in the chat function earlier, the things that make you happy. How are you going to create the space and the time in your week, in your calendar for those things as well?
yeah. And I think sometimes, you know, we, if we pause and say, if we never make time for fun or pleasurable or novel activities in our life, we may find that we never do them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? So it's crucial that we do start to, as you say, plan, schedule, and complete. We say it all the time.
Yeah,
And interestingly, the research suggests that often we will just write down, yeah, I'm going to do it on Wednesday night at this time. But we also, when we must add in, and perhaps this might be a progress experiment for some of you, is just to add in the location of what you're going to do or where you're going to do it. So not just the day or the time, but write in the location as well. And what the research suggests that I was looking at was that it creates a lot more traction in the habit that you want to create. So write down not just when you're going to do it and what time you're going to do it, but write down the location as well. Plan,
yeah.
schedule,
The more
complete.
detail, the better, right? But the
Yeah,
key thing is, to schedule that in. And I think,
yeah,
we talk about that daily, and it certainly is absolutely true for me in all of these things as well. I need to create that time and stick these things in the calendar or the
yeah,
weeks just fly by. So yeah, important to just kind of recognize the world we live in and how perhaps it's not set up in the best way to support our happiness levels. We know that when we look at cultures where people might have a lot less materialistic things than we have, the things that we think we need for our happiness, but they still find moment to be present in the moment and be happy, even though you might be, really struggling
Yeah.
financially or whatever it might look like. So finding out, what that actually means, what it looks like to you, and perhaps it's not the materialistic things or how you look and
No, it's quite humbling, isn't it, to see people that are a lot less well off or have a lot less than we have materialistically, but it's quite humbling to look at those people and they're enjoying their life. And
yeah.
they seem to be have a holding an even keel in their life. But what is it that we're doing or assuming or expecting
Yeah.
that's hindering our level of presence and being in a moment? So
Yeah.
a lot of it's around having that purpose as well, isn't it? It's about what aspects of your life give you a deep and fulfilling sense of purpose?
Mm.
Share
Yeah.
with me in the chat function. That's a great question. I love that question.
Yeah.
What
And
what
it's
what gives
vital.
you a deep sense of purpose in your life? What things that you do give you a real deep sense of purpose and meaning? Share with me in the chat function. Cool. These deep questions, eh?
Yeah.
Crikey.
Excellent. Get us
These
all
deep
thinking a
questions.
little bit.
People joined up just expecting a little insight into unlocking the happy hormones, and suddenly we're like, "Crikey, let's have a little
What's the meaning
kind
of
of deep,
life?
deep question."
Absolutely, but great one to think about. And also it can seem like a quite an imposing, big, scary question. Like what is the purpose and the meaning of your life? So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to overthink it too much. You can just, just find something small and build on it, just to stick onto that. So should we get into the details then about
Yeah,
how we
yeah,
actually
we'll be
do
here all day.
happy, right? So we want to find more happiness. We want to create that on a daily basis so that it sort of ups the level of our happiness and keeps us going. So how do we go about it? We're saying that we to be happy have to do happy. So it's a choice, right? Like Grace told you when she was 5. She's just decided to be happy. And if you decide that you want to be happy, and again, if you're not inclined that way, you might just feel a bit forced. But when we choose to find the positive in things and find that optimism, it's easier to deal with the negativity when we just step away a little bit and you not judge ourselves too harshly. So let's dive into our happiness hormones then. So what are they, Grant? Should we start by just highlighting the key
Yeah,
hormones that give us
yeah.
happiness?
So many of you may be familiar with the happy hormones. Another way to look at it is the kind of acronym DOSE. Give yourself a dose of happiness,
That's a good way
and
to remember it. Yeah.
and DOSE represents dopamine, oxytocin, and serotonin, and endorphins. And perhaps you've heard of one or maybe more of those key neurotransmitters and hormones. And each of them has a slightly different role. And what we're going to do is perhaps look at perhaps what they do, how they influence our bodies, and then what actions are going to promote the release of these hormones. Because if you're secreting these hormones, if your body is manufacturing these hormones effectively, then you're going to experience better mood, better function. Everything's going to be working a lot well. So
And I
so
think the
yeah, so
great thing about the great thing about knowing these things is that if we are feeling a bit down or we're not in a great mood, we can just give ourselves a little dose of one of these to just get our mood up a little bit. So should we start with the first one then? So dopamine. Where do we
yeah.
find that?
So dopamine is your reward hormone. So it's that kind of wonderful feeling that we get when we feel that we're going to be succeeding at something. So it's like
Mhm.
achieving a goal, or it revolves around uh, working your way towards something. So earning something or engaging in a task or something like that, or completing a task. We
Mm.
get a little hit, a little release of this neurotransmitter, this hormone dopamine that kind of floods our body and gives us that sense of uh, I'm doing it, I got it, I've done it, sort of kind of mindset. So
Yeah.
any actions where we start to think about that are going to give us that sense of success or working towards something, we start to release this particular hormone. So when we start to think about what kind of actions can we engage in that are going to promote that, we start to think, and as you mentioned, it doesn't have to be big things, right? It can be just
Yeah.
completing your to-do list, the first thing on your to-do list.
And that I think that's really crucial here because when we say, that sense of achievement or having, achieved something, we might start thinking in really big terms, but it can be just congratulating yourself every day for those small achievements, exactly like you're saying, just write down your to-do list and ticking things off. That's
Yeah,
really rewarding, isn't it? It makes you feel really good when you've got a head full of admin tasks that you need to get on with, and then you actually start
yeah,
ticking them off. I love that.
yeah. So it revolves, doesn't it, around moving towards something, even learning new
Yeah.
skills.
Hmm.
So it's about learning, it's about achieving, it's about engaging in those activities that release that reward hormone. And also dopamine is exceptionally important for building habits and establishing habits and sustaining habits. Because if you're getting
Yeah, of
frequent hits
course.
of dopamine, you're going to want to do it again. And if you're going to want to do something, you're much more inclined to go and do it again if you want to do it.
Mm.
So yeah, it's really important in habit building. Small successes. I'm just looking at the screen here. Building new skills, trying something new. I guess the great question, and feel free to write this down, is how will you engage in personal learning and achievement today? What
Yeah.
what what could you do today to learn something new, to achieve something, to work your way towards the goals that you have? What one thing that you can do that you'll experience success doing it?
Yeah, and that's key, isn't it? What will be successful, what can you achieve? So yeah, so have a think about that one. Take that one with you today when we leave as well. And feel free, of course, to put in the chat function, but think about what you can do each and every day to give yourself a little dose of dopamine. All right, let's
Dopamine.
move on to the next one then. So we've got oxytocin, which is also known as our love hormone, right? We hear that a lot. We know we get oxytocin from spending time with friends and families, with our loved ones. We get it from physical touch. Where else do we get oxytocin?
I think oxytocin. It's crucial that we associate oxytocin with things like connection and
Yeah.
physical connection, bonding, trust, being with the
Mm.
people, keeping people around us that we trust. So
Yeah.
even kind of physical touch. So people noticed said about what makes them happy earlier on. Someone said about pets.
Yeah, that's a great
Just
one.
stroking pets can release oxytocin that can
It
actually lower blood
does.
pressure.
Yeah.
So so yeah, think of oxytocin as that bonding hormone that's released when you have effective and meaningful social interactions.
Mm.
So
And that's interesting, is it? Because we know that human beings, we need physical touch, right? It's important to our well-being, and it's important to that, releasing that happiness hormone. It makes us feel good. Some more hugs, and yeah, and stroking pets. It's also a great way. So we're talking about our happiness hormones here. Of course, that's what we're focusing on now. But the opposite of some of these, so our stress hormone, of course, is cortisol, which makes us unhappy. And perhaps a lot of the things that we spoke about earlier when we looked at our obstacles and barriers to happiness, a lot of them revolve around stress and our, never-ending to-do lists and just feeling swamped with everything we have to do. So a lot of us tend to run on cortisol a lot of the time. So getting a dose of one of these,
yeah,
happiness chemicals actually shuts off that cortisol production. And oxytocin is a great one for that. So,
yeah,
when we're feeling stressed and wired, a hug or like a cuddle with your pet's going to make you feel better instantly, isn't it?
yeah.
So,
And
schedule those in as well.
yeah, and showing affection. Say a big one is saying thank you, like an
Mm,
authentic, meaningful, even having an authentic, meaningful conversation. When was the last time? I mean, take a moment just to reflect. When was the last time you had an authentic, very meaningful conversation with somebody else?
yeah.
There was engaged listening, not divided attention, not pretend listening, because we've all done that before, right? Innocently.
Yeah,
Perhaps some of
totally
you are doing
agree.
it right now, watching it. But say when it comes to releasing oxytocin, saying thank you is great, right? So sharing compliments, giving someone a compliment, that
Yeah.
recognition, that praise is wonderful, not
And it's
just
also that
for them.
sort of, random act of kindness that many mentioned earlier, giving back and doing nice
Yeah,
things for others. So
yeah,
as another one for you all to take with you and think about when you leave
yeah.
today, how are you going to, add more oxytocin into your day? And it seems like a quite, easy to achieve one. If it's just as simple as, saying thank you to people, we can all
Does
manage
it,
that.
the things that we're talking about don't have to be huge life transformational kind of
No.
changes or massive huge changes. Often it's those small things that we think or feel are insignificant or even obsolete. They don't carry much importance, but it's often those things when it's brought to our attention and when we reflect that actually
Yeah.
make the biggest difference. So perhaps the next question or the question might be for you all is how are you going to nurture new and existing relationships in your day today?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good one. Let's try and do some of that. Let's pencil that into our busy
Sold. Yeah,
lives
there
as
we
well.
go.
So our
What-
next one then, next hormone. So what have we got next? Serotonin. Now that's another one that I'm sure we've heard about, the happy hormone, serotonin. So where do we get that from?
So serotonin is our many people would have heard of serotonin and its kind of links to feeling good, and it is. It's our mood stabilizer, right? It's our hormone that helps us overcome or reduce symptoms and signs of anxiety and depression. It helps stave those off a little bit. It's
Hmm.
that feeling that we get when we feel important about something, and it's influenced hugely by our lifestyle habits as well.
Mm-hmm. So where do we get it from?
Serotonin, the large majority of our serotonin is actually manufactured in our gastrointestinal system, which many
Mm.
people are unaware of. People think of happiness hormones, they think, oh, okay, it's manufactured in other areas, usually
All in
typically
your
our
head,
brain
doesn't
and
it?
things,
Yeah.
something like that.
Hmm.
But actually, serotonin, one of the mood enhancers, much of that serotonin is manufactured in the gut. So if you're having a diet that's full of ultra processed rubbish, it's no surprise really that your mood is going to be
An
influenced,
impact
right?
on your mood. Yeah.
Your mood is going to be influenced. So
And we know, of course, from studies and research shown as well that changing your diet, so cutting out all of those things that you just mentioned or limiting them and upping, your colorful veg and the wide variety of plant-based foods and all the colorful foods, we know that that actually has an impact on things like depression and anxiety. So, eating well and getting all of those nutrients helps produce that serotonin and
yeah,
it can really have a massive impact on dealing with things like depression and anxiety, which is
yeah, and also
fascinating and such an easy
easy
go-to,
fix,
isn't it?
almost an easy fix. How do you
Yeah.
increase serotonin by default? If I
Bit of
eat,
fruit and veg.
yeah, if I have, make some nutritional upgrades. Another important key factor for serotonin production release is gratitude. So
Yeah.
expressing gratitude, counting your blessings.
Mm. Because that's what
Practice
always
meditations and
say
things like that.
that, you can't, like an anxious mind can't coexist in a relaxed body, right? So
Exactly right.
finding that
Yeah,
calm and peace in our day,
yeah.
slowing down a
Again,
bit.
fundamental. So I guess when we start to think about questions here, feel free to write these down. We've had a few. How will you apply gratitude and nutritional upgrades to feel happier in your day? What could you do to express more gratitude to yourself or to others or to situations? I mean, one thing that jumps into my mind very quickly is 3G VIP. So write down three things that you're grateful for every morning.
Yeah.
And VIP, write down your vision. What is it you want to achieve? Your intention. What's the one thing I'm going to do today? And the P is
You get your
progress.
dopamine when you get that one done. Yeah.
You'll get, again, they overlap, don't they? It's not kind
Yeah.
of, we're not packaging each of these dose of happy hormones and saying you can, if you did some
That one.
breathing techniques, you'll only release
Yeah.
serotonin. Of course, there are other things at play and other hormones.
Mm.
I guess that takes us to the last one,
Yeah. So the
which
last one
is,
then being endorphins.
yeah,
So this for me is one that I associate very much with exercise. And, personally, like my exercise is really important to me and I'm part of an amazing, group of women who train together and it's, the exercise that sort of cuts out the cortisol, right? And the stress hormones. But it's also, we always have such a laugh. And surely that plays a part in the endorphins as well, right? When it comes to
I
exercise and
do you know what? You're absolutely right because the endorphins are released as a natural kind of pain reliever.
yeah,
Okay, so they relieve kind of signs and symptoms of unwanted tension. They lessen the effects of stress, but many people attach endorphins and the release of endorphins to physical activity and exercise,
yeah.
which of course is correct.
Runner's
Um,
high, right? All heard that.
Pardon? Yeah, the runner's high. Yeah, those things like that. Yeah, absolutely. But it's also um, released in high quantities when we experience things like fun,
Mm.
play, movement, these sorts of things. So even
Things we
laughing, right?
probably don't do enough of, right? As humans, as adults, I was going to say, playing and laughing.
Yeah,
When was the last time you did that? I'm thinking like some, physical playing like children do.
yeah. That or even just belly laughing, right?
Yeah.
When was the last time you had a right proper belly laugh? That's why things like watching every now and again, um, if you're stressed, watching your favorite funny film or watching a little kind of podcast that
Yeah.
you previously found very amusing or very funny, can change, how you feel, because of the release in endorphins.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? You can you can tap into, just watching a comedy show if you're not feeling great and just force that, just force on some laughter and it will give you the
Yeah,
endorphins.
yeah.
It
So
will
think
give you the
about
same benefit.
yeah,
Yeah.
think about
And
things
before you
like
know it, you might feel happier.
Yeah, think about things like getting a massage. Think about things like laughing out loud with friends, connecting with friends, watching a funny video, doing some physical exercise and activity.
Mm,
These sorts of things will release that natural body's pain reliever, and
yeah.
help manage pain, help manage stress from physical activities. So I guess the question here will be, how will you encourage more play, exercise, and fun and laughter
Yeah.
in your day today?
Then that's an excellent one to end on the dose, isn't it? How are you going to find more laughter and fun in your day? Definitely a great one to stick on the to-do list. So, yeah, being intentional about it, just saw your comment there in the chat function. That's the key thing, isn't it? We have to go out and seek it. We have to do it. We have to practice it, and then of course, the more we practice it, then it starts becoming a habit. And before you know it, you're just giving yourself happiness doses.
Yeah, so we've said probably a number of times throughout this short kind of reflection around happiness that if you want to feel happy, perhaps you have to do happy.
Hmm.
Um, Grace said, I'm happy because I want to feel happy. Are we as happy as we make our minds up to be, or is there more that we need to do because we can't just think happy all the time, can we? So what we've created here, and we share this in our workshops and webinars, is a useful tool to hopefully engage everybody around you in experiencing or attempting and experimenting with different actions that promote a release of one or more of these dose of happy hormones. And we
Mm.
call it the happiness jar. And what we've done here, you can scan this, grab your phones right now, scan this as a PDF, um, and you will notice that you'll receive what we call the Happy Habits Lucky Dip. And we encourage you to cut them out. And there's lots of different actions in there, much of which we've spoken about before, like saying thank you to a person, sharing a compliment, giving someone a hug, laughing out loud, go and tell a joke, complete your to-do list, whatever it might be. We encourage you to cut out each one. You can even create your own ones and say to the people in your meeting, say, okay, well, what can we add to our little happy jar? And the idea here is to keep it in a breakout area. And when you come in the morning, you reach in, take one out, look at that one, and that's the one you're going to focus on that particular day. And so we start to create these actions. And remember, having this wonderful intention without any action is
Yeah.
like multiplying by zero, right? Nothing really happens. So it's about experimentation and trying something that's going to put a smile on your face and somebody else's face.
And this is a great, so I hope you all scan that QR code. It's such a great, easy access way to go about it because we've talked about a lot of things now when we've got you to think about, how you can get quick doses of your dopamine, your oxytocin, your serotonin, and your endorphins, and there's a lot to think about. So do scan that QR code and print that off. And yeah, keeping those, around the office, but also at home, right? You can just,
Yeah,
make
yeah.
that a fun game in the house. I'm thinking particularly for myself, living with teenagers. Grant, you might have similar experiences as well. Can
Again, it
always
gives
do
us a
with,
focus, right?
forcing a bit of happiness on
Yeah.
people.
It gives us a nudge, and we all need a nudge. And remember, think about kind of some of the important ingredients in creating a habit. There needs to be a prompt, there needs to be a trigger
Yeah, absolutely.
or a reminder. So with that in mind, let me ask everybody today, and feel free to share in a chat function, because we like to hold people's feet to the fire at the end of every session and say, okay, well, what is it exactly that you're going to do? So share with us in a chat function. If you know, share with us, what will you be attempting today to promote happiness in yourself or those that you live with, work with, or socialize with? Share with me and everybody else. What are you going to commit to experimenting with just for today? If you want to do it for 5 days or 7 days, then great. But what are you going to focus on today? And also,
Yeah.
before you escape, everybody, there, I've just launched the feedback poll. So please feel free to jump on there and just share your thoughts in the feedback poll as well.
Fabulous. And of course, I would say as well with everything that we do, if you've got any questions or you didn't manage to get that QR code or whatever, always reach out to us at Wellbeing People. We're always happy to chat and answer any questions you might have. Um, but if we don't have anything else, then yeah, going to smile was just as I was going to round up. I saw your comment. Just going to smile more. It's a great
Yeah,
one to start your day in front of the mirror. Just force that smile, and the more you do it, it will give you, you will feel better. You will feel happier.
I love that someone's also written that I'm going to watch a funny film.
Yeah,
I'm going to,
that's an easy
it's
one,
lovely,
isn't
isn't
it?
it? Isn't that
Brilliant.
great?
And get some other people to join in as well.
Play, laugh, watch a movie. Look at that. Isn't that fantastic? Often we don't do that enough.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
would
So,
say so.
schedule in some playtime.
Great
That's
stuff.
great.
Fabulous. I guess then that just remains for us to say thank you to everybody. Thank you so much for prioritizing you and your time and your well-being and connecting this session. It's been lovely to see that interaction. It's always lovely and a privilege for us as coaches to see that, because when we share our thoughts and answers, we share a little bit of vulnerability. So it's really lovely to see that interaction. So thank you everybody for that, and thank you, Karin. Thanks for
Thank you, Grant. There's a lot of thank
having a
yous
lovely
here. There's a lot
chat.
of thank yous in the chat function. So
Yeah,
taking off that that little quick action as well. But yeah, thank you so much for taking the time and joining in. Thanks, Grant. It's been fabulous to remind ourselves all about those simple things that we can do to just make us feel a little bit better every day.
yeah, absolutely. Well, brilliant. Please feel free to jump off the call if you've got places to go. Come up for air, grab a drink, grab some movement, go tell a joke.